Captain Yuna stood at the front window of her ship, the Horizon, and watched the massive space station grow larger. After 200 years of trying, humanity had finally built a ship fast enough to reach the stars. Now, here they were, about to meet the Galactic Assembly, a group of over 4,000 different alien species, who had been traveling through space for millions of years. Yuna had prepared for this moment her entire life. She had studied every signal, every piece of alien communication humanity had ever received. She knew this would be the most important day in human history. "We are ready to dock," said Lieutenant Tan, her communications officer. He was young, barely 30, but he could speak 12 alien languages already. His fingers moved quickly over his controls. "They have given us permission to enter." Dr. Minji, the ship's science officer, stood beside Yuna. She was older, with gray streaks in her black hair and kind eyes that had seen many strange things. "I expected more excitement from them," she said quietly. "Their messages have been very cold." Yuna had noticed it too. When humanity first made contact 6 months ago, the aliens had seemed curious. But as the weeks passed, their messages became shorter, colder. By the time the Horizon launched, the assembly had stopped asking questions about Earth entirely. The ship docked with a soft sound. The doors opened and Yuna led her crew of 50 humans into the station. The hallway was enormous, big enough to fit a small city inside. Thousands of aliens walked through it, creatures of every shape and size. Some had wings. Some had too many legs. Some floated in the air or rolled on wheels made of their own bodies. But something was wrong. Every alien that saw the humans moved away. Not running, not screaming, but carefully, quietly stepping aside. Parents pulled their children close. Old creatures lowered their eyes. It was not hate that Yuna saw in their faces. It was fear. "Why are they afraid of us?" Taeyeon whispered. Yuna did not answer. She kept walking toward the assembly hall, where the leaders of the galaxy waited. But with every step, the crowd grew thinner. By the time they reached the great doors, they were completely alone. The assembly hall was a massive room filled with floating platforms. On each platform sat representatives of different species. Yuna counted hundreds of them, all watching in silence as the humans entered. At the center, on the highest platform, sat a being made entirely of light. It had no face, no body that Yuna could understand, just crystals of pure energy arranged in a shape that suggested something ancient and wise. This was the Velthri ambassador, representative of the oldest species in the galaxy. The Velthri had existed for over 3 billion years. They had seen stars born and die. They had watched countless species rise and fall. "Welcome, humans," the Velthri said. Its voice was soft, like wind through leaves. "We have been watching your species for a very long time." Yuna stepped forward and bowed. "Thank you for receiving us. Humanity is honored to finally join the galactic community. We come in peace, hoping to learn and to share." "You misunderstand," the Velthri interrupted. "You are not joining us." The words hit Yuna like a punch. Around the room, other ambassadors shifted nervously on their platforms. "I don't understand," Yuna said carefully. "We have done everything you asked. We come without weapons. We followed all your rules." "This is not about rules," the Velthri said. "Earth has been placed under permanent observation quarantine. No species may land on your world. No trade will be permitted. Contact will be limited to basic diplomatic channels only." Dr. Minji stepped forward, her scientific mind already working. "Quarantine? Is there a disease? A danger we don't know about?" The Velthri's light flickered something like a shiver. Yuna realized. "There is no disease. Then why?" Yuna demanded. Her voice echoed through the silent hall. "We have traveled so far. We have worked so hard to reach you. Why are you shutting us out?" For a long moment, the Velthri did not answer. When it spoke again, its voice was barely a whisper. "You are not alone on that world. You never have been. We will not speak of what shares your cradle. The words made no sense. Yuna looked at Taeyeon, who shook his head in confusion. Dr. Minji was already checking her tablet, scanning through all the data they had about Earth. There's nothing else on Earth, Minji said. We have mapped every inch of our planet. Every species, every ecosystem. There are only humans and normal Earth life. You see what you are able to see, the Valkyrie replied. You do not see what you are not meant to see. Another ambassador spoke up, a creature that looked like a giant insect with kind eyes. Please understand, humans. We do not hate you. Many of us find your species fascinating. Your art, your music, your strange and beautiful emotions. We have studied them for centuries. Then, why treat us like this? Yuna asked. The insect ambassador looked down. Because we are afraid. Not of you. Of what lives beside you. Of what has always lived beside you. Yuna felt anger rising in her chest. This is madness. You're punishing us for something we can't even see? Something you won't even explain? The Valkyrie's light dimmed. We have explained all we can. To speak more would be dangerous for us, and perhaps for you as well. Your species has survived this long because you do not see them. Perhaps it is better to keep it that way. The meeting ended shortly after. The humans were escorted back to their ship, given supplies and fuel, and told to leave. No one would answer their questions. No one would even look at them. That night, as the horizon drifted away from the station, Taeyeon sat alone at his communication console. He was scanning through alien frequencies, looking for anything that might explain what had happened. Then he found it. A fragment of a conversation between two Valkyrie elders. Most of it was corrupted, impossible to translate. But one phrase came through clearly, and when Taeyeon read it, his blood went cold. They do not see them. They have never seen them. Perhaps that is the only reason they survived. Taeyeon stared at the words for a long time. Then he stood up and walked to Captain Yuna's quarters. She needed to see this. Humanity needed to understand. Something was on Earth. Something that terrified the oldest beings in the universe. And somehow, impossibly, humans had never noticed it was there. 3 months had passed since the assembly turned humanity away. Captain Yuna had refused to go home. Instead, she had taken the horizon across the galaxy, searching for answers that the trail led them to HFY, a small neutral world where the galaxy's oldest records were kept. The planet was covered in libraries, massive stone buildings that held the history of every known species. A young human historian named Suho met them at the landing pad. He had been stationed on HFY for 5 years, studying alien history. When Yuna told him what they were looking for, his face went pale. Every record about Earth older than 2.8 billion years has been sealed, Suho said as he led them through dusty hallways. I tried to access them once. The system rejected me. It said the files were classified at the highest level Valkyrie authority only. Someone doesn't want us knowing our own history. Dr. Minji muttered. There was one other person who had come with them on this journey. An old woman named Haijin, nearly 90 years old, who had insisted on joining the mission. She walked slowly, using a cane, but her eyes were sharp and clear. Yuna had not wanted to bring her. But Haijin had said something that stuck in her mind. My grandmother's grandmother knew the old truth. The stories have been passed down for generations. You need me. Now Haijin walked through the ancient library, touching the walls with her wrinkled fingers. They fear what they cannot control, she said softly. But fear does not erase truth. It only hides it. Suho led them to a restricted section. Using codes he had spent years collecting, he opened a sealed door. Inside was a single pedestal holding a glowing crystal. This is the only surviving fragment I could find, Suho said. It's a recording from a Valkyrie warning beacon. The beacon was placed in Earth's solar system billions of years ago. Taeyeon connected his translation device to the crystal. The room filled with a voice beyond imagination, speaking words that had waited eons to be heard. Nursery world. Do not wake the shepherds. Everyone stood in silence. The message repeated 3 times, then went quiet. Shepherds, Minji whispered. What does that mean? Shepherds of what? Haijin smiled sadly. In Korea, we have old stories. The Dokebi spirits who played tricks but sometimes helped humans. The Yumho fox spirits who lived for thousands of years. The Sansan mountain gods who watched over villages. She paused. My grandmother told me these were not just stories. She said they were memories. Memories of beings who lived beside us but stepped sideways when humans became too many. Yuna frowned. You're saying folklore is real? I'm saying every culture on Earth has the same stories, Haijin replied. Spirits, gods, beings who helped or hurt but were never quite seen. Every continent, every tribe, every civilization, they all remember something watching over them. She tapped her cane on the floor. Maybe they didn't imagine it. Maybe they just forgot how to see. Dr. Minji had been working on her tablet. Now she looked up with an expression of shock. I just ran new scans of Earth using Velthury sensor technology we traded for. And? Yuna asked. Normal scans show nothing unusual. But when I adjusted for dimensions that humans cannot perceive, she turned her tablet around. The screen showed Earth, beautiful and blue. But overlaid on it were billions of light signatures, like a second population living in the same space, but not quite touching. There are as many of them as there are of us, Minji breathed. Maybe more, living right beside us. In the same cities, the same homes. We just can't see them. Taeyeon sat down heavily. We've never been alone. Not for a single moment in human history. Before anyone could respond, a soft light filled the room. They turned to find the Velthury ambassador standing in the doorway. It had followed them. You should not be here, the ambassador said. But its voice was not angry. It sounded tired, sad. We deserve to know the truth, Yuna said firmly. The Velthury was silent for a long moment. Then it drifted into the room, its crystalline form casting strange shadows on the walls. 3 billion years ago, it began. My species was young. We were explorers like you. We found Earth, a small blue world filled with simple life. We decided to make it ours. The light dimmed slightly. We were erased. Not killed, erased. The shepherds removed us from existence itself. They took from us even the memory of what happened. All we know is that one day, 10,000 Velthury ships approached Earth. The next day, those ships had never existed. The crews had never been born. Their families could not remember them because there was nothing to remember. Yuna felt cold. They can change reality? They are reality, the Velthury said. They existed before the first stars. They will exist after the last stars die. Your planet is their garden. You are their favorite flowers. And they do not like it when others touch their garden. Why don't they hurt us? Suho asked quietly. Because they love you. The Velthury's voice cracked with something like envy. We have watched humanity for millions of years. You built cities while they watched. You created art while they listened. You fell in love, fought wars, dreamed of the stars, all while sleeping in the palm of something infinite. They could have controlled you, shaped you, made you into anything they wanted. But they didn't. They let you grow wild and free. A transmission alert interrupted them. Minji checked her device and went pale. It's from Earth, she said. Something is happening. Children all over the world are reporting. New friends. Friends that adults cannot see. The Velthury stepped back, its light flickering rapidly. They are waking. After billions of years, they are waking. Because of us. Because we drew attention to Earth. Yuna grabbed her crew. We're going home, now. As they ran to their ship, Haijin walked slowly behind them, a small smile on her old face. I told you, She said to no one in particular. My grandmother's grandmother knew the truth. The old gods never left. They were just waiting. The horizon raced toward Earth at maximum speed. But by the time they arrived, the world had already changed. Reports flooded every news channel. Children under the age of 10 were talking to invisible friends, but these were not imaginary companions. The children described the same beings in the same detail across every country on the planet. Tall figures made of soft light. Gentle voices that felt like warm blankets. Hands that were not hands, holding them when they were afraid. Director Jiwoo of Earth's Global Defense Initiative sat in her office in Seoul, watching the chaos unfold on dozens of screens. She was a practical woman 53 years old, who had spent her career preparing for alien threats. But nothing had prepared her for this. We've deployed scanners to every major city, her assistant reported. The children are definitely interacting with something. Energy readings spike whenever they claim to be talking to the entities. But we can't see them. We can't photograph them. We can't record them. Jiwoo rubbed her temples. What about weapons? Can we target these energy signatures? That's the strange thing, Director. Our weapons won't lock onto them. It's not that the systems fail. They just refuse to recognize the targets exist. It's like reality itself won't let us aim at them. In a small apartment in Bizen, an 8-year-old girl named Dayan sat cross-legged on her bed. Her mother stood in the doorway, watching with worried eyes. Who are you talking to, my love? Her mother asked gently. Dayan smiled. The tall, quiet ones. They've always been here, Mama. They watched over me when I was a baby. They sang to me when I had bad dreams. She tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear. They say they're sorry for hiding. They say the stars are watching now, so they had to wake up. Her mother knelt beside her. Dan, there's no one there. I know you can't see them, Dan said patiently, the way children explain obvious things to adults. They say grown-ups forgot how. But that's okay. They still love you anyway. Captain Yuna's ship landed in Seoul 3 days later. She went straight to Director Jiwoo's office, bringing Dr. Minji and Grandmother Haejin with her. Tae stayed behind, working to establish communication with any entity willing to talk. The entire galaxy is terrified of these things, Jiwoo said after Yuna explained everything. And you're telling me they've been on Earth the whole time? Living in our homes? Watching our families? Protecting, Haejin corrected softly. Not watching, protecting. We can't be sure of that, Jiwoo snapped. For all we know, they've been farming us like cattle. An alert sounded. One of Jiwoo's officers rushed in. Director, we have something. A child in Bizenshi says the entities want to speak with us. Through her. An hour later, Yuna stood in the small apartment in Bizen, facing little Dan. The girl sat calmly, her eyes unfocused, looking at something beyond the visible world. They're happy you came, Dan said. Her voice was still her own, but her words felt older, deeper. They've been waiting a long time to explain. Yuna knelt to meet the girl's eyes. Who are they? What do they want? Dan was quiet for a moment, listening. Then she spoke, and her voice carried echoes of something vast. We are the shepherds. We have existed since before your son was born. When life first appeared on Earth, we chose to stay. To guide. To protect. Protect us from what? Minji asked. From yourselves. From the cold universe. From the extinctions that nearly ended everything. Dan smiled gently. 5 times, life on Earth almost disappeared completely. 5 times, we held it back from the edge. We guided evolution. We whispered ideas into sleeping minds. We made sure humanity had the chance to exist. Jiwoo stepped forward, her face hard. Why hide? If you wanted to help, why not show yourselves? Dan turned to her, and for a moment, Jiwoo saw something behind the child's eyes, something so vast it made her legs weak. Because you needed to believe you were alone, the voice said. A watch seed does not grow true. We wanted you to become yourselves, not what you thought we wanted you to be. So we stepped sideways. We watched from the spaces between moments. We loved you from a distance you could not imagine. The Valkyrie, Una said. They told us what you did to them. You erased them from existence. For the first time, the presence seemed sad. They came to take, to own, to destroy what we had nurtured for billions of years. We did what we had to do. We are not proud of it. But we will always protect our garden. Grandmother Haijin stepped forward and bowed deeply, the way Koreans bow to honored ancestors. My grandmother's grandmother remembered you, she said. She called you the old ones who watch. She said you were kind. Dan's face softened. We remember her too. She left us offerings of rice and flowers. She was one of the last who could almost see us. The presence paused. We have missed being seen. Why wake up now? Una asked. After all this time? The answer came heavy with ancient worry. Because something else is waking too. Something beyond the edges of your galaxy. Something that eats realities and leaves nothing behind. We have held it back for eons, but we are growing tired. We protected you from the galaxy. Now we need your help to protect the galaxy from what comes from the spaces between. The room fell silent. Outside, across the world, other children were having similar conversations. The shepherds were reaching out everywhere, speaking through the only humans who could still hear them. What can we possibly do? Jiwoo whispered. You're beings of infinite power. We're just humans. Dan reached out and took Jiwoo's hand. Her touch was warm, real, the hand of a normal little girl. That's exactly why we need you, the shepherd said through her. You are small and brief and fragile, but you love so fiercely. You hope so stubbornly. You fight so bravely for things that will outlast you. We have forgotten how to do that. We need you to remind us. Yuna looked at her crew, at Director Jiwoo, at the old woman who had known the truth all along. The universe had just changed forever. Nothing would ever be the same. But somehow, standing in that small apartment, listening to ancient beings speak through a child, Yuna wasn't afraid. She was ready. Tell us what you need, she said. Humanity is listening. 6 months after the shepherds revealed themselves, the galaxy was in chaos. Ambassador Yoonji stood before the Galactic Assembly, the same hall where Captain Yuna had been rejected. But today, every seat was filled. Every species was watching not with fear anymore, but with desperate hope and terrible uncertainty. You want us destroyed, Yoonji said calmly, looking at a delegation of insect-like beings who had demanded Earth be wiped out. You think if you kill humanity, the shepherds will go back to sleep and everything will return to normal. We want safety. The insect ambassador clicked. For 3 billion years, the universe has operated on rules we understand. Now you bring chaos, uncertainty. You bring beings who can unmake reality itself. Yoonji smiled gently. She was 45 years old, a diplomat who had spent her life finding common ground between enemies. This was the greatest challenge of her career. Let me tell you what the shepherds told us about themselves, she said. They are tired. They are ancient beyond our understanding, but they are not all-powerful. For billions of years, they have stood alone against the darkness at the edge of the universe. They asked nothing from us because they loved us too much to burden us. But now they are asking, and we have to decide what kind of species we want to be. On Earth, a different kind of battle was being fought. General Dongwook stood in a military bunker beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province. He was a hard man, 60 years old, who had spent his life preparing for war. Now he saw an opportunity. The shepherds could make us gods, he told his loyal officers. With their power, humanity could rule this galaxy. Every species that looked down on us, every empire that called us primitive, they would bow before us. His officers nodded eagerly. They had already made plans. First, They would seize control of Earth's government. Then they would force the shepherds to serve humanity. With beings who could reshape reality, nothing could stop them. But they were not alone in the bunker. Dongwook suddenly felt a presence in the room. Not hostile, not threatening, just there, watching. "Show yourself," he demanded. The air shimmered. For just a moment, Dongwook could really see what had been standing beside him his entire life, that it was vast beyond words. Not big in the way a mountain is big, but deep in the way the ocean is deep. It had eyes that held galaxies, hands that cradled stars. It was beautiful and terrible, ancient and forever young, and looked at Dongwook with something that broke his heart: pity. "You wish to use us for conquest," the shepherd said directly into his mind. "Let us show you what that path holds." Dongwook's vision filled with images. He saw timelines where humanity chose power over wisdom. He saw Earth burning as other species united against the tyrant world. He saw human children growing up in fear of their own leaders. He saw the shepherds, heartbroken, withdrawing their love forever because the species they nurtured had become everything they hoped it would never be. In every timeline, it ended the same way: ash, silence, nothing. When the vision ended, Dongwook was on his knees, tears streaming down his face. "We have watched you since you were born," the shepherd said gently. "We saw every kindness and every cruelty. We know what you are capable of, the worst and the best. We did not protect you for billions of years so you could become destroyers. We protected you so you could become what we always believed you could be: good." Dongwook's officers stood frozen, experiencing their own visions. One by one, they dropped their weapons. The coup ended before it began. Far away, in a laboratory in Daejeon, a scientist named Hanyul achieved something no human had ever done. She had spent months studying the shepherd's communication patterns. She had combined human technology with alien sensors, added ancient meditation techniques that grandmother Haijin taught her, and finally found a way to shift her perception just enough. Now she sat in her lab, breathing slowly, and opened her eyes to the true world. The shepherd standing before her was beyond anything she could have imagined. It was a mountain made of kindness, a storm that remembered her name. It bent light around itself, yet moved with the gentleness of someone afraid to wake a sleeping baby. "You are beautiful," Hanyul whispered. The shepherd reached out with something like a hand and touched her cheek with something like love. "So are you," it replied. "All of you. That is why we stayed. That is why we could never leave." Hanyul asked the question that mattered most. "What is the hollow? What are we facing?" The shepherd showed her. The hollow were entities from between dimensions, not evil, not good, simply hungry in a way nothing else was hungry. They consumed realities the way fire consumed wood. They had no hate, no anger. They simply ate. And they were coming. "We have held them back for eons," the shepherd said. "But we are few, and they are endless. We need partners. We need hope. We need someone to remind us why we fight." Ambassador Yunji finished her speech to the Galactic Assembly with words that would be remembered forever. "You feared what lived beside us. But here's the truth. We raised cities, fought wars, fell in love, and wrote poetry while sleeping in the palm of something infinite. We never knew they were there, but they kept us safe anyway. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing. They simply loved us. That is not weakness. That is trust. The deepest trust in the universe. And now we offer that trust to you. Not as conquerors, not as pets of ancient gods, as partners, as family, as beings who know what it means to be protected and want to offer that protection to others." The assembly was silent. Then, slowly, the Volturi ambassador, the same one who had turned humanity away, rose from its platform. 3 billion years ago, we called humans a nursery species. We were wrong. Its crystal light flickered with something like tears. "You are not children. You are teachers. You teach the oldest beings in the universe how to hope again." That night, the shepherds did something they had never done before. They reached out to every human mind simultaneously, not controlling, not demanding, simply asking. A single question appeared in the thoughts of every person on Earth. From newborn babies to dying elders, "Will you stand with us?" The answer came back overwhelming. Across every nation, every culture, every language, yes. 97.3% of humanity chose to stand Dot in her small apartment in Bizen. Dayan held her mother's hand and smiled. "They're not scared anymore," she said. "The tall, quiet ones. For the first time in billions of years, they're not alone." Humanity had made its choice. Now came the hard part, living up to it. 10 years had passed since humanity and the shepherds joined hands. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Hope, watching 3 stars burn where there should have been 5. The battle had cost them dearly. 2 star systems lost to the Hollow. Billions of alien lives gone in an instant. But they had won. For the first time in recorded history, the Hollow had been pushed back. "The enemy is retreating," Lieutenant Commander Tae-hun reported. He was older now, gray at his temples, but his eyes still held the same curiosity that had driven him to decode that first Veltari message so long ago. "All sectors report victory." Yuna allowed herself a small smile. Victory. Such a simple word for something so impossible. The battle against the Hollow had been unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The creatures had poured through rifts in space like water through broken glass, endless, mindless, consuming everything they touched. 3 star systems had fallen before the combined forces could organize a defense. But then the shepherds had arrived. They moved through the void like thoughts given form. They bent reality around the Hollow, creating walls of pure existence that the creatures could not consume. They sang songs in frequencies that made dimensions vibrate, pushing the enemy back inch by impossible inch. But the shepherds alone had not been enough. They had power beyond imagination, but they had fought alone for so long that they had forgotten how to fight with others. They had become defenders, not warriors. Guardians, not generals. That was where humanity came in. Human ships darted between the shepherds, providing tactical information, coordinating attacks, protecting refugees from worlds that were being eaten. Humans could not match the shepherds' power, but they could do something the ancient beings had lost the ability to do: adapt, improvise, fight with creativity and chaos. And more importantly, humans could remind the shepherds why they were fighting. In the darkest moment of the battle, when 3 shepherds actually fell, beings who had existed since before stars, a human pilot named Sujin had flown her small ship directly into a hollow rift. Her weapons were useless. Her shields were failing. But she broadcast one message as she disappeared into the consuming darkness. "Tell my daughter I love her. Tell her I chose this. Tell her we choose this because it matters." The remaining shepherds had felt that message. They had felt a small, fragile being choosing to sacrifice everything for something bigger than herself. And something that had been sleeping inside them for billions of years woke up. Not just duty, not just guardianship, rage, love, the fierce, burning need to protect what matters. They had destroyed the rift with a scream of pure existence. The Hollow had retreated. The battle was won. Now, a month later, Yuna stood on her bridge and remembered all the ones who had not made it. Sujin, the crews of 1,000 ships. The civilians on worlds they could not save. The price had been terrible, but they had paid it. Together, a soft light filled the bridge. Yuna turned to find a shepherd beside her, not invisible anymore, not hidden, but present and seen, the way the ancient beings had learned to be since the alliance began. "You are troubled," the shepherd said. It spoke directly to her mind, but Yuna had grown used to that. "I'm thinking about what comes next," she replied. "The Hollow will return." "They always return." "Yes, but next time we will be ready." Because of you. Una shook her head. We didn't do anything special. We just fought. The shepherd made a sound like gentle laughter. You do not understand what you gave us. For billions of years, we protected Earth because we loved what lived there. But we had forgotten why we loved it. We had become machines of protection, doing our duty without understanding it. You reminded us of joy, of purpose, of meaning. You showed us that small lives, brief lives, can matter more than endless existence. On Earth, in a park in Seoul, the world had changed in ways that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. Dan, now 18 years old, walked along a path lined with cherry trees. Beside her, clearly visible to anyone who wished to see, moved a shepherd. Children ran past them, laughing, some human and some not. The galaxy species had finally begun to visit Earth, no longer afraid of what lived there. Dan had become the first true translator between humans and shepherds. She could speak both languages fluently, could exist in both worlds at once. She had spent her teenage years teaching others how to see, how to hear, how to understand beings that existed perpendicular to human reality. Now she was helping build something new. The ambassador from Veltharis is waiting, her assistant said, jogging up beside her. She says she wants to see the memorial. Dan nodded. The Velthari had sent their first official ambassador to Earth just last year. The first Velthari to set foot on the planet since they had been erased 3 billion years ago. She had wept when she arrived. Her species had no physical eyes, no liquid tears. But she had wept anyway. The memorial stood at the center of Seoul, where the old government buildings had once been. It was a garden, not a monument, not a statue, but a living garden where human plants grew beside species from 100 worlds. At its heart was a simple stone with words carved in every known language. They watched over us. Now we watch over each other. The Velthari ambassador stood before the stone, her crystalline form flickering with emotions her species had never allowed themselves to feel before. Dan walked up beside her. My ancestors tried to take this world, the ambassador said quietly. The shepherds destroyed them for it. For 3 billion years, we have been afraid. And now? Dan asked. The ambassador's light brightened. Now I understand. The shepherds did not destroy my ancestors because they were cruel. They did it because they loved something worth protecting. If I had found such love, I would have fought for it too. She turned to face Dan. I would like to learn. I would like to understand what it means to love something small and brief and fragile. Will you teach me? Dan smiled, the same warm smile she had worn as a child when she first told her mother about the tall, quiet ones. That's what we're here for. Far above Earth, Admiral Una stood at the observation window of her flagship, watching the planet turn slowly in the darkness. The shepherd stood beside her, its vast form somehow fitting into the small space of the bridge. They thought we were pets, Una said softly. Then they thought we were parasites. Now what are we? The shepherd considered the question with the patience of something that had existed since before the stars. You are gardeners, it finally said. We raised you in a garden we had tended for billions of years. Now the garden has grown, and you tend it with us. Not as servants. Not as tools. As family. Una felt tears prick her eyes. We almost failed. There were moments when we almost chose the wrong path. Yes, but you didn't. That is what makes you remarkable. You had every opportunity to become tyrants, and you chose to become partners instead. You had every reason to fear us, and you chose to trust us instead. That choice, that small, fragile, human choice, changed everything. Una looked back at Earth, at the planet that had been the cradle of humanity, the nursery of the shepherd's longest dream. What happens now? She asked. Now we grow together. We make mistakes together. We learn together. We face the darkness together. The shepherd's presence wrapped around her like a warm blanket, like a parent's hug, like the feeling of coming home. We are no longer alone. Neither humans nor shepherds. neither Earth nor the galaxy. We are together now. And together, we will make something beautiful. In the garden in Seoul, Dan took the Veltri ambassador's hand and led her toward a bench beneath a cherry tree. A shepherd drifted beside them, visible now to all who wished to see. In space, human ships patrolled alongside alien vessels, guarding the rifts where the hollow might return. Across 1,000 worlds, the story was being told. The story of a small blue planet that had slept in the palm of something infinite and never known it. The story of beings who could reshape reality but chose instead to nurture a single world for billions of years. The story of a species so stubborn, so hopeful, so fiercely alive that they reminded the oldest beings in the universe why existence was worth protecting. They had thought humanity was alone. They had been wrong. And in the end, that was the best thing that had ever happened to anyone. Dan looked up at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, her mother was watching. Grandmother Hai-Jin was watching. All the ones who had believed before believing was easy. Thank you, she whispered to the shepherd beside her. For staying. For waiting. For loving us. The shepherd's response filled her heart with warmth that would last a lifetime. Thank you for being worth the wait.